the successful criminal, for instance, knows the odds, okay? The odds are like 12,000 to 1 that I'll get convicted or I'll get caught if I commit a crime. Even kids, man, 13, 14 years old know those odds. Everybody that's in the business of crime knows the odds, both the professionals and the criminals, professional criminals and professional non-criminals.
That guy that had all this,
Yeah. I've been arrested something like 800 times, you know, ridiculous amount of times. Only been down to penitentiary 1 time. And I used to talk to him about it, and he used to give me the rap. And he explained to me what the odds were. He'd get busted. Say, for instance, he was out, okay, 12,000 to 1, he's not going to get caught committing a crime, okay, his burglary. If he did get caught, he always had $500 in his pocket. Then the first thing he would do is he'd try to get a, quote, street adjustment, which is fixing the copper, okay, as soon as he gets caught. If that didn't work and he went down to the station, then he'd shot for an adult station adjustment. An adult station adjustment is when you turn around and you pay some money to the desk sergeant to forget about the beef or something. If that didn't work, then when they went down to court to go to trial, then would give his lawyer the money to go to the, to the victim and pay the victim and tell the victim, hey, I'm going to get 10 continuances. That means 10 days without work. Then you got to be down here. Now you take this $500 and that'll more than cover for the damage and we'll forget it because all I got from you was a tire.
I think the most effective deterrent to crime is swift and sure punishment. To put it another way, I think the most effective deterrence to crime is trial of a case and a final disposition, either a finding of guilty or a finding of not guilty within the quickest possible time after arrest.
When I was in the dope business, I wouldn't go to Texas. I wouldn't go to Texas for nothing in the world because I knew that if I went to Texas and I got cracked in Texas with 1 joint, 1 reefer, okay, I'm going to do 4 years in Huntsville. No doubt about it. I mean, there's got to be no doubt in the minds of anybody that commits a crime that if they get caught, there's not going to be any station adjustment, any street adjustment, any court adjustment. I mean, I'm going to have to go to court, I'm going to have to stand trial, and that's it.
There is often in a criminal case someone who is the victim in the sense that they were stabbed or robbed or murdered or deprived of some property. There are those victims that we all know about. Then there are the other victims in the system that people don't very often think about as victims. And those are the accused. Those are the people who are the people that the system is attempting to penalize in one way or another. More often than not by putting them away in the penitentiary or in some jail. I call those people victims because more often than not they are because of circumstances quite beyond their control.
I'm afraid of the prison where I'm bound to do my time. Afraid you'll forget me while I'm paying for my crime. What makes you think that you can judge my guilt or innocence? I've been on each side of that big wall and there's no difference.
The American flag, beard, new car in the driveway, an engagement ring, a gavel. We live by symbols. Observe the great American jurist Oliver Wendell Holmes. Symbols, a kind of emotional shorthand for the things that we feel, that we instantly communicate to others: respect, fear, social status, and even sometimes hatred. Over the past few years, the judicial branch of our government, symbolized by this gavel, has suffered a major loss in public respect and confidence. What was designed as the answer to man's eternal pursuit of justice and fair play is rapidly being consumed by a maze of legal procedures, 60-second hearings, inconsistent judgments, disappointed witnesses, and seemingly endless stream of requests for continuances. If nothing else, the common man is frustrated. And that's a feeling that's also shared, it seems, by the rest of the criminal justice system. I got held up a couple of blocks from where I live, just after I cashed my paycheck. So far, all I got to show for it is about 16 stitches. Oh yeah, and I'm getting to know my lawyer real well. I've been down to criminal courts building 3 times now with a witness, and the case still hasn't been tried. Oh yeah, they caught the guy. Yeah, but he hasn't got any money. Now look, what I don't understand is, we pay all this, what do you call it, compensation to these countries that we bomb after a war. Yeah, but nobody compensates me for getting robbed or losing all that time at work when the police and the courts aren't doing their job. Now that guy should go to prison, right? But I can't afford too much more of this. Back and forth, back and forth. I spend more time in court than I do on the street. And most of the time, they just continue the case or cop a plea. Sometimes I just don't make the arrest. It's not worth it. Look, all I want is a trial, huh? I want a chance to tell my side of the story to a judge, but I can't get to see him. I'm sitting in here like some common, ordinary criminal just because I picked a fight with a guy in a bar, and I can't get to talk to the judge. People expect me to be some kind of Perry Mason. What I am is an advocate. My responsibility is to make sure my client gets everything he's entitled to under the law. Now, that's his constitutional right. And if you're ever in court, believe me, you're going to want everything you've got coming. Sometimes I feel like I'm presiding over a traffic jam. The police send me people who don't really belong here. The defense attorney and the prosecutor look on me as some kind of a negotiable item in a bargaining session. And the public expects me to protect them by putting away every lawbreaker in prison for as long as possible. Everyone complains about continuances. But how can I possibly handle over 100 hearings a day if I don't rely on the lawyer's recommendations? We need help. More support. What we don't need are more people in this court. I understand our courts are in a mess. People say we need more judges, more help in the courts. Is there any alternative to more judges, more help?
Well, perhaps there are other things that ought to be explored before we start talking about lots more judges and lots more prosecutors. I think, first of all, we have to take a good hard look at the way the judges we presently have are being employed and how they spend their time.
Right.
I think that if anyone were to analyze the cases that are on the court calls at any given time, whether we're talking about the preliminary hearing courts or the trial courts themselves, you'll find that a large percentage of those cases are coming up on those calls for the second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth time.
Item. A recent Illinois Law Enforcement Commission study showed that it takes the Cook County criminal courts an average of 286 days and 13.9 continuances to dispose of a felony case. It costs the state $10 every day the defendant waits in jail. The beat goes on. At best, our criminal courts represent a fragile constitutional marriage between the protection of the innocent and the punishment of the guilty. The question is, can this marriage be saved? Case continued.
The defendant who is not guilty and the evidence doesn't prove him guilty shouldn't be required to sit up in the county jail in lieu of bail for 18 months to 2 years, working his way up to a trial level. The defendant who the evidence does prove his guilt and is proven guilty beyond a reasonable doubt shouldn't be sitting in the county jail. He ought to be down in the penitentiary after a trial.
If the judges would take a stronger hand in administering their caseloads, if they held both the prosecutor and defense attorney to tighter schedules, to more realistic schedules in terms of setting specific dates for trials, we may find we're handling cases much fewer times. If you handle an individual file fewer times, then clearly that's going to relieve the burden of the courts.
Item. It is estimated that in fully 1/2 of all criminal cases where charges are dropped, failure of witness to cooperate is responsible. The major reason given is fear of reprisal. Angie, I've just witnessed a crime, all right? Very harrowing experience, more for the person than for me. But now I'm scared because if I report that crime and I submit myself to being a witness, there's liable to be some retribution, right? How do I avoid that? How do I cope with that?
Well, I hate the word avoid. I think that we've come to the point now where you better take an interest and you better be the witness. Because, you know, if you don't clear this up, if people don't go down and stand up and say, look, I saw this happen, that is the individual that caused this person's problem, you know, beating him over the head or whatever.
What's to assure that I'm not going to be injured?
There is no assurance. It's just the idea that you're going to do something about it. And this idea of letting the other guy do it and let the other guy take the risk isn't, to me, you shouldn't live in a community.
That's a moral point of view, and I respect it. But what about my own safety?
Your own safety. Well, for instance, one area of Edgewater, there's a gang that I feel had terrorized the whole area. I mean, like they took over a beach if they want to and chase everybody off, and people left. Or they took over blocks. There were people who were afraid to testify. And so we guaranteed by meeting, you know, groups of people hearing about this need that you needed witness support, let's say. And we asked the people, the victims, if they would please, and the witnesses, if they would go down to the courts and follow this through courts with the police and with this state's attorney, that we should get these cases, get this taken care of once and for all. If the kids need psychiatric care or whatever, or if they have to be put away as a habitual criminal, fine. But as individuals, we got together and we made a force, so to speak. We accompany you. We go down to that court and we're supporting you.
I've got some support.
Right.
Okay.
And the way
you're going to court with me?
Definitely.
Wow.
And not only me, there could be, at one time we had about 60 people.
Honey, with you with me, I'm afraid of nothing.
I can believe that.
Okay.
All right.
The whole backup of the system leads to people having a dim viewpoint of the criminal justice system because of the slowness with which it operates.
The Constitution guarantees everyone accused of a crime the right to trial and defense by counsel. For the poor or indigent, the state appoints a public defender at no cost to the client. The middle income or affluent client may hire his own attorney. Attorney's fees begin at, $300 or so and go on from there up into possibly the thousands. Often it becomes a case of how much justice can you afford?
If a person is poor, his choices are somewhat limited, especially in the state courts of our city. A person who is poor and tells a judge he cannot afford to have a lawyer is going to be appointed a public defender, or in some rare circumstances, a private lawyer who will be appointed by the court. He doesn't have a choice which public defender he'll be appointed. Maybe he's heard that a particular public defender is particularly competent. He doesn't have a choice to ask for that particular person to defend him. From his standpoint, he feels like he's stuck with someone that has been thrust upon him, someone he didn't choose, someone who's now asking him questions to reveal confidences and other information, and that someone is paid by the very same people who pay the judge, who pay the police, who pay the prosecutor. And from a defendant's standpoint, that doesn't seem very fair. And then if he were to go and he were to watch a private lawyer defend one of, say, someone else who's also charged with a crime in the same court, he would see that private lawyer do things that many public defenders are unable to do. And the public defender's office is so understaffed and so underfinanced and so overburdened with court cases in our system. If the resources were available, then we could really say that justice is equal, and that it doesn't matter if a man has a lot of money or a little money, he's going to get a fair trial. And that's not the fault of the public defender, and that's not the fault of the man or the woman who's accused in the criminal courts. That's the fault of a system that we've let go by because, well, I guess basically because none of us know about it, and because we don't see it, and we don't see the pain, and we don't see the agony. It just sort of grinds on, and it sends people away and puts them in cages. And we don't see them, so we figure it's not a problem.
Each year, the American correctional system handles about 2.5 million offenders at the cost of over $1 billion. Not all of them are behind prison walls. Based on the offender's capacity to change, the judge now has alternatives.
I'm Warden Cannon. My responsibilities here at Stateville have to do with mainly and principally maintaining the public safety at this institution and making it a hopefully better place and more reasonable place for people to serve time, and a better place and more reasonable place for people to be employed.
You can pretty well predict, without trying an individual, whether or not he's going to go into an institutional or a non-institutional program after he's found guilty. What they do is they screen people by various criteria, and if the screening process determines that here's a guy, even if he's found guilty of a crime, that's going to go into a non-institutional program, they talk to him prior to adjudication and say, in exchange for not adjudicating you as a person guilty of a crime, we'll give you an out. We'll defer you into a correctional program now. We need your consent because you haven't been found guilty of anything. But if you're willing to consent to this, you'll get a chance to participate in a program that may do you some good, and at the same time, you'll have the benefit of not having been found guilty of a crime.
Diversion at the court level, I think, is an answer to a lot of our problems in institutions like this. In other words, people should come here only who really have to have this kind of confinement. And other people should be dealt with on a community-based correctional level. In other words, there needs to be programs developed in the community to deal with people who don't have problems severe enough. They're not dangerous, they're not violent, they can be worked with effectively in the community. That's where they should be worked with, rather than sending them to a major institution.
I don't think that all persons who are convicted should be sentenced to the penitentiary. There are some people that, even though they have been convicted of a crime, are good candidates for rehabilitation without being sentenced to the penitentiary.
Are you scaring the public a little bit at that? Hear people guilty or accused, let us say, of serious crimes, and now they're being given the option of being...
These programs are based on the creation of real community-based correctional programs. To put a person out on probation, but not treat him at all, not deal with him at all, not check on him at all, is not really a program. To say that someone in a program such as that fails is not to say that probation or community-based corrections fail.
Right.
These programs, these pretrial intervention programs, count on real resources that are in the community that are every bit as intensive as institutional programs.
Well, the interesting thing about dealing with human behavior is you're never going to be able to peg down a person's behavior and say what he's going to be doing a month from now or a week from now or tomorrow. But if you have people who are qualified and are knowledgeable in the behavioral sciences, then they should be able to certainly prognosticate or predict behavior enough to make programs meaningful that are community-based. but you're never going to eliminate the possibility of somebody doing something very wrong in a community-based program.
My opinion, judges aren't qualified to make any decisions. Number one, begin with their lawyers. They're not behavioralists. They don't know anything about the behavioral sciences. My entire career, both inside the law and outside the law, I only knew one judge that had a degree in social work, and the other judges, man, hated his guts.
I think we should lock people up only if they have, in fact, been convicted of serious crimes against the person or property. I think we should limit our efforts to reform them to what is fair in relation to what they've been convicted of. I do not think it is rational to think that prisons are going to make much difference to curing people of crime.
If I can use probation, then I will not sentence to the penitentiary because of my belief that right now, for whatever the reasons, our penal system in this state, as well as in the entire country, doesn't do an adequate job of rehabilitation. All our penal systems are now, for the most part, are doing is warehousing human beings.
When I came out of the institution, I was probably the most dangerous person on the face of the earth. You know, because when I was down in the institution, when I was down in Stateville in Joliet, I had 3 of my teeth kicked out by a guard that laughed at me and dared me to get back up off the ground. I was in the hole. And we still tend to use that. If I take a dog and I put a dog in the basement of my house, man, for 30 days or 60 days, he comes out of that basement insane.
Well, the public expects, if that's what you're asking me, a great deal. They think that they can both punish people and cure them by locking them up in prison. I very much doubt it. I think prisons exist to punish people. I think it may be possible within the enforced banishment that is punishment to let people who wish to change a little, but I'm not sure about that. I'm not sure about that. The real problem is that people have diverse purposes in locking criminals up in prison, and they haven't been very clear about which priorities they want to pursue.
Well, you hear that if somebody commits a crime, basically you should put him away so he's not dangerous anymore to the public anymore.
Well, he's certainly not dangerous to the public while he's locked up, but the problem is he comes out again.
No, I don't think it's realistic that we could handle perhaps as many people as some people would like to see locked up. And it's expensive, and we feel we're overcrowded now at 1,400 inside the walls, and if we received an exceedingly a high amount of new committees or whatever, it would create large problems for us here.
None of us really knows when by time and circumstances and fate we might find ourselves, or better said, someone else might find us, in the so-called wrong place at the wrong time, charged with a criminal offense. And everyone thinks that, no, that'll never happen to me because I'm innocent, until it does happen to someone close to him or her who is indeed innocent. What most of us forget is that, but by the grace of God, there go I. But by the grace of God go you or your son or daughter or your husband or your next door neighbor or some really good friend. And that's the real importance of our system. The importance of keeping this system going according to the mandate of the Constitution, so that never is there a single choice made in that system which assumes that a man is guilty. The importance of keeping alive all our basic fundamental rights. Some people say we don't need to have those rights. He did it, so put him away. Well, we have to ask ourselves the question, if that speaker were the one who was accused, would he say, well, I don't need those rights, I did it, so put me away? When we assume that any one of us, innocent as we may be, can be caught up in this system at any time, then we're going to want the system to protect every right we've got. We're going to want it to presume us innocent. We're going to want it to give us a fair trial. We're going to want it to let us have a jury of our peers, people from our own community who can't be influenced by private interests or by judge or prosecutor or police officer, or anyone else. We're going to want a system that will allow us to be found innocent, as in fact we are.
I'm afraid of the judgment of the law of the land, afraid of the power that he holds in his hand. But when I plead my case in court, I'll be so penitent. And I know that when the judge gives a verdict, he'll treat me lenient. I'm afraid of the prison where I'm bound to do my time. Afraid you'll forget me while I'm paying for my crime. What makes you think that you can judge my guilt or innocence? I've been on each side of that big wall and there's no difference.